The crimson sand of Zarian 7 shifted beneath Marcus Chen's boots as he crouched behind the twisted remains of a crashed transport vessel. His dark eyes scanned the horizon where 3 suns painted the alien landscape in shades of amber and rust. The colony had been silent for 3 days now. That silence carried the weight of death. Marcus adjusted the tactical scanner clipped to his combat vest. Its soft beeping, the only sound breaking the eerie quiet. At 28, he had survived more battles than most soldiers twice his age. But something about this mission felt different. Wrong. The evacuation orders had come too suddenly, leaving behind valuable research data that Command desperately wanted recovered. A shadow passed overhead, too quick and graceful to be debris caught in the wind. Marcus pressed himself deeper into cover, his pulse rifle ready. The stories about Zarian 7's apex predators had reached every human outpost in this sector. Creatures bred for war by an alien empire that viewed humanity as nothing more than an infestation to be cleansed. Kestra landed on the transport's hull without making a sound, her muscular frame perfectly balanced despite the unstable surface. Her silver-scaled skin caught the triple sunset like liquid metal. Her bright green eyes held an intelligence that marked her as far more than just another mindless killer. Twin curved blades extended from her forearms with a soft whisper of alien metal. She had been tracking this human for 6 solar cycles, studying his patterns and tactics. The War Council expected her to eliminate him quickly and retrieve whatever classified data he carried. But Marcus Chen was proving to be unlike any human she had encountered before. Through her enhanced vision, Kestra watched as Marcus set up a clever defensive position, using the terrain and debris to create multiple escape routes. Most humans she hunted relied on crude firepower and panic. This one moved with calculated precision, showing tactical awareness that impressed even her. Predatory instincts. Marcus caught movement in his peripheral vision and spun, rifle raised. For a heartbeat, hunter and prey locked eyes across the wasteland. Kestra's breath caught in her throat at the calm determination she saw reflected in his gaze. No fear, no desperation, just steady resolve. Interesting, she murmured in her native tongue, her forked tongue tasting the air currents that carried his scent. Human males usually reeked of terror sweat when facing death. This one smelled of confidence and something else she couldn't identify. A low rumble echoed across the colony ruins as a pack of lesser predators emerged from their hiding places. Marcus's jaw tightened as he counted at least 8 of the beasts, their massive forms covered in natural armor plating. These weren't sentient hunters like Kestra, savage killers driven by bloodlust and hunger. Kestra watched with growing fascination as Marcus began laying tactical traps with swift efficiency. He used debris to create choke points and positioned explosive charges at key structural weak spots. The human was turning the entire crash site into a killing ground. When the first predator charged, Marcus didn't run. Instead, he triggered a carefully timed collapse that sent tons of metal crashing down on the creature. The others hesitated, confused by tactics they hadn't expected from what they considered prey. That hesitation cost them dearly. Marcus moved through his predetermined positions like a dancer, leading the predators into one trap after another. His rifle fired in short, controlled bursts that conserved ammunition while maximizing damage to vital points. Kestra herself only learned through years of combat training. As the last lesser predator fell, Marcus turned to face her directly. Somehow, he had known she was there all along. "Are you going to attack, or are we going to talk?" he called out, his weapon lowered but ready. Kestra's pupils dilated with surprise and something that might have been admiration. Kestra dropped gracefully from her perch, landing 10 meters from Marcus with her blade still extended. Her green eyes studied him with predatory intensity, searching for signs of deception or hidden weapons. The wind whipped her long silver hair around her shoulders as she circled him slowly. "You fight with honor," she said, her accented English carrying musical tones that made the harsh words sound almost gentle. "Most of your kind rely on crude tactics and overwhelming firepower." Marcus kept his rifle aimed downward but maintained combat readiness. "Most of your kind don't usually stop to chat before trying to kill me." He noticed the way she moved, fluid and controlled, like a blade dancer from the old Earth stories. Before Kestra could answer, the ground beneath them erupted in a shower of sand and metal fragments. A massive siege predator burst from its underground tunnel, its armored carapace gleaming with bioluminescent threat displays. The creature stood 4 meters tall, with crushing claws designed to tear through battle tanks, without hesitation. Marcus rolled toward Kestra, firing rapid shots at the creature's sensor organs. Together, shouted over the beast's deafening roar. Kestra's blades sang as she spun into combat stance. Together, she confirmed. And something electric passed between them in that moment of shared trust. They moved as if they had trained together for years. Marcus provided covering fire while Kestra used her superior agility to find weak points in the creature's natural armor. When she stumbled, Marcus was there to steady her with one strong arm around her waist. When his rifle overheated, she positioned herself as a shield between him and the predator's snapping jaws. The battle was brutal and swift. Kestra's blades found the soft tissue between armor plates while Marcus's precise shots disrupted the creature's nervous system. As the siege predator collapsed, they found themselves breathing heavily, standing close enough to feel each other's body heat. "Why?" Marcus asked quietly, his gray eyes searching her face. "Why did you help me?" Kestra's hand moved to rest on his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart through the combat vest. "Because you showed me something I had never seen before in a human. Courage without cruelty. Strength without domination." Their faces were inches apart now, and Marcus could see flecks of silver in her green eyes. Her skin radiated warmth that seemed to call to something primal in his chest. "Your people sent you to kill me?" "Yes," she whispered, her fingers curling slightly against his vest. "But I find myself wanting to protect you instead." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and danger. Marcus reached up to touch her face, his calloused fingers gentle against her scaled skin. She leaned into the contact, a soft purring sound rumbling in her throat. "This is madness," he said, but made no move to pull away. Perhaps Kestra agreed, her tail curling around his leg in an intimate gesture that made his pulse race. But madness sometimes leads to the most beautiful discoveries. Distant roars echoed across the wasteland, growing closer by the moment. More predators were coming, drawn by the sounds of battle and the scent of blood. "We need shelter," Marcus said reluctantly. Stepping back, though, his eyes remained locked on hers. Kestra nodded, but her hand caught his as he turned away. "Marcus," she said, and hearing his name in her exotic accent made his chest tight. "Whatever happens next, know that you have changed something fundamental in me." He squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. "Me too." As they gathered their equipment and prepared to move deeper into the colony ruins, both carried the memory of that first touch. That first moment of connection that transcended the war raging around them. The abandoned research facility hummed with residual power as Marcus led Kestra through corridors lined with darkened laboratories. Emergency lighting cast red shadows that danced across the walls, creating an intimate atmosphere despite their dangerous situation. The building's automated systems had sealed most entrances, providing them with temporary sanctuary from the hunting packs outside. "This should hold them for a while," Marcus said, activating the facility's defense grid. Force fields shimmered into place across the main access points, their blue glow adding to the otherworldly ambience. Kestra explored the space with fluid curiosity, her enhanced senses cataloging every detail. "Your people were studying predator biology here," she observed, examining data displays that showed anatomical charts of her species, trying to find weaknesses. Marcus joined her at the terminal, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Trying to understand," he corrected gently. "Not all humans want to destroy what we don't comprehend." She turned to face him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "And what do you want to understand about us?" Their eyes met in the crimson lighting, and Marcus felt his breath catch. "Everything," he admitted. "Your culture, your dreams, what makes someone like you choose mercy over orders." Kestra's hand rose to trace the scar that ran along his jawline, a memento from an earlier battle. We are not so different, you and I. Both warriors without wars worth fighting, worth lonely in our strength. The gentle touch sent electricity through Marcus's entire body. He covered her hand with his own, pressing her palm against his cheek. "Show me," he whispered. "Show me who you really are." What followed was a slow dance of revelation. Kestra shared the hunting songs of her people, her voice weaving melodies that spoke of distant stars and pack bonds that transcended death. Marcus told her about Earth's oceans and the way snow fell in winter silence, painting word pictures that made her eyes shine with wonder. They sat together on the facility's observation deck, watching Zarian 7's 3 moons rise over the devastated landscape. The danger outside felt distant, held at bay by the intensity of their growing connection. "My people would call this betrayal," Kestra said softly, her head resting against Marcus's shoulder. "Consorting with prey species, abandoning the hunt." Arm tightened around her, pulling her closer to his warmth. "My people would court-martial me for fraternizing with enemy combatants," he replied. "But some things matter more than military protocol." Kestra lifted her head to study his face in the moonlight. "What things?" Instead of answering with words, Marcus cupped her face in both hands and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she instead pressed closer, her exotic purr vibrating against his lips. The kiss deepened into something that spoke of desperate longing and impossible. Her scales were smooth under his fingertips, warm and alive in ways that textbook descriptions could never capture. She tasted of starlight in wild places, of freedom and primal beauty that made his heart race with more than just desire. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily. Kestra's pupils had dilated until her eyes appeared almost black. In the dim light, and Marcus could see his own reflection there, transformed by her gaze into something more than just another human soldier. "This cannot last," she whispered, though her hands remained tangled in his hair. "Then we'll make it count," he replied, pulling her down for another kiss that tasted of rebellion and promised outside. The hunting packs continued their search. But inside the facility, 2 hearts that should have been enemies discovered that love could bloom even in the space between heartbeats. Even when tomorrow might bring war and separation, and the end of everything beautiful they had found in each, Other's arms dawn broke across Zarian 7 with the fury of 3 angry suns. And with it came the sound that chilled Marcus to the bone. The deep, rhythmic howling of a full predator warpack, their voices raised in harmony that spoke of coordinated hunting and inevitable death. Carter was instantly alert, her body tensing against his as they lay entwined on the facility's makeshift bedding. "They found us," she whispered, her enhanced hearing picking up subtleties in the calls that Marcus couldn't detect. "My pack leader Zoroth is with them." Marcus reached for his equipment, but Kestra caught his wrist. Her green eyes held fear for the first time since he'd known her. "You don't understand. Zoroth trained me from childhood. He can predict my every move, counter every strategy I might use." "Then we'll have to be unpredictable," Marcus said grimly, checking his rifle's power cell. Through the facility's reinforced windows, he could see shapes moving through the dawn mist. Too many shapes. "How long do we have?" Kestra replied, her voice tight with anxiety. "The defense grid will slow them, but not stop them." As if summoned by her words, a tremendous impact shook the building. Sparks showered from overhead systems as something massive struck the facility's outer walls. The force fields flickered and died one by one under sustained assault. Marcus grabbed their emergency supplies, while Kestra sealed the laboratory doors behind them. They moved through the facility's maintenance tunnels, their bodies pressed close together in the narrow spaces. Despite their desperate situation, Marcus found himself acutely aware of her warmth, of the way her breath caught when he had to steady her over unstable sections. There, Kestra pointed to an emergency exit that led to the facility's vehicle bay. "If we can reach the transport pods," the tunnel wall exploded inward, revealing a predator unlike any Marcus had encountered. Zoroth stood nearly 3 meters tall, his midnight black scales marked with ritual scars that spoke of countless victories. His eyes, a pale yellow that seemed to glow with inner fire, fixed on Kestra with unmistakable disappointment and rage. My star pupil Zorith's voice carried the authority of absolute command, consorting with prey, bringing shame to the pack. That raised you. Kestra stepped protectively in front of Marcus, her blades singing as they extended. I chose my own path, teacher, as you taught me. I taught you to be a weapon, Zorath snarled, not a traitor. The battle was swift and brutal. Zorith's experience showed in every calculated strike, every perfectly timed counter. But Kestra fought with desperate love, protecting Marcus even as her mentor's superior skills began to overwhelm her defenses. Marcus couldn't get a clear shot without risking Kestra, but he could provide distraction. His rifle bursts forced Zorath to divide his attention, creating the opening Kestra needed to land a crippling blow across her former teacher's sword arm. Run, she gasped, blood streaming from claw marks across her shoulder. They burst from the facility into the harsh triple sunlight, racing toward the transport bay as more predators emerged from concealment. The pods were ancient human designs, barely functional, but they represented their only hope of escape. Marcus initiated the launch sequence while Kestra held their pursuers at bay, her injured form still moving with deadly grace. Engines fired. He pulled her inside, sealing the hatch just as Zorath's massive fist hammered against the hull. They lifted off into Zarian 7's turbulent atmosphere, but their relief was short-lived. Pursuing craft appeared on their scanner, sleek predator vessels designed for exactly this kind of hunt. Where can we go? Marcus asked, wrestling with unfamiliar controls as energy bolts streaked past their cockpit. Kes slumped against him, exhaustion and blood loss taking their toll. There's a place, she whispered. Neutral ground. If we can reach it, ... Head fell against his shoulder as consciousness faded, leaving Marcus alone at the controls with a ship full of hunters, closing in behind them and only her whispered coordinates to guide them toward what might be salvation, or simply a more beautiful place to die together. Love conquers Worth neutral ground. Kestra had spoken of turned out to be an ancient temple. Complex built into Zarian 7's largest moon, massive stone spires reached toward the stars, carved with symbols from a civilization that predated both human and predator presence in this sector. It was here Marcus realized that their two species had first encountered each other in peace. Before war poisoned everything, their damaged transport pod crashed into the temple's landing courtyard. With bone-jarring impact, Marcus gathered Kestra's unconscious form in his arms, her silver blood staining his combat vest as he carried her toward the temple's entrance. Behind them, predator hunting craft settled like deadly birds of prey. Zorith emerged from the lead vessel, flanked by elite warriors whose very presence radiated lethal competence. But, to Marcus's surprise, human forces also appeared, led by Colonel Richards, his former commanding officer. "Stand down, Chen," Richards called out, his sidearm trained on Marcus, even compromised by enemy influence. "Surrender the alien, and we'll consider this a case of temporary insanity." "The boy is beyond saving," Zorath rumbled, his yellow eyes fixed on Kestra's still form. "He's been tainted by forbidden contact. Both must die to preserve the purity of our species." Marcus stood between the two forces, holding Kestra protectively against his chest. Her breathing was shallow, her life force ebbing away despite his desperate first aid attempts. "You're both wrong," he said quietly, his voice carrying across the ancient courtyard. "This isn't about purity or contamination. It's about choice." Laugh was like grinding stone. "What choice does prey have except to die?" "The choice to love instead of hate," Marcus replied, looking down at Kestra's peaceful face. "The choice to build instead of destroy." Kestra's eyes fluttered open at the sound of his voice, green pupils dilating as she focused on his face. "Marcus," she whispered, her hand rising to touch his cheek. "You came back for me." "It's always," he promised, pressing his lips to her forehead. "No matter what happens, I'll always come back for you." What happened next would become legend in both human and predator histories. Kestra struggled to her feet, supported by Marcus's unwavering strength, and began to sing. Not the hunting songs of her people, but something older, something that resonated with the temple stones themselves, and seemed to awaken memories carved into the very foundations of the moon. The song spoke of unity, of two species that had once shared knowledge and dreams before fear drove them apart. It told of love that transcended biology, of hearts that beat in harmony despite different worlds of origin. One by one, the weapons lowered. Human soldiers and predator warriors found themselves moved by something they couldn't name, touched by a truth that had been buried under centuries of conflict. Colonel Richard stepped forward, his expression troubled. "Chen, what you're suggesting? The implications? ... The implications," Kestra said, her voice gaining strength with each word, "are that we've been fighting the wrong war. We've been trying to prove which species is superior when we should have been learning from each other." Zaroth's scarred face showed the first crack in his certainty. "The hunt is sacred, defines us." "Then hunt for knowledge," Marcus suggested. "Hunt for beauty. Hunt for ways to make both our peoples stronger together than they ever were apart." The moment balanced on a knife's edge, with representatives of two warring species standing in an ancient place that remembered peace. Then Kestra stepped away from Marcus's supporting arms and walked slowly toward her former mentor. "Teacher," she said, offering him her throat in the traditional gesture of submission. "I offer my life for his. Let love be the bridge between our worlds." Zorath stared at her for a long moment, then did something unprecedented in predator culture. He knelt before his former student, acknowledging her courage and the wisdom of her choice. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time for the hunt to evolve." Months later, the temple complex had become a symbol of cooperation between species. Marcus and Kestra worked together as ambassadors, their love story becoming the foundation for a new era of understanding. When they stood together on the temple's highest spire, watching the stars that no longer seemed like barriers between worlds, they knew that some kinds of love were powerful enough to end wars and begin new chapters in the story of life itself. Their first kiss as mates, according to both human and predator customs, tasted of starlight and infinite possibility.